Welcome back to Uma Talks, everybody. Today we've got a good conversation with Carl from Enocean. We're going to talk about smart spaces and we're going to talk about how their products are helping organisations all over the world turn their buildings into intelligent spaces. So firstly, Carl, nice to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. It's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. So I'm Shadam. So I head up the sales organisation at Enocean.
Awesome.
Been there just over 3 years now, and that was through an acquisition Enocean made back in October 2022.
2022, what a year. Awesome. Well, okay, so we usually kind of have a nice kind of flowing conversation. It's not like a scripted, even though I have got some questions for you, and we talked about this previously, but let's do a couple of some icebreakers so people know a little bit about you. So when you're not messing around with technology, because Enocean is pretty much chips and technology, what is it that we can find you doing outside of tech? What's an interesting hobby of yours?
Good. Well, I've got 3 boys, so I spend a lot of time sort of ferrying them about for various sort of sports activities. But I also am a FA qualified football coach for juniors. So my youngest, who's 10, I run his football team, and then in the summer I help coaching out at cricket.
Awesome, excellent. So pretty active family life. I'm the same. I'm football on a Saturdays, football on a Sundays. It's just all over the place at the minute. It's my weekends have gone, let's say.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick one building, so this is a question that we've had curated by others, to make smart, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I know this might sound a silly answer, but certainly my kids' primary school, my youngest, and my elder ones have gone through as well, needs to be a little bit smarter. I'm not going to say smart, I'm going to say smarter.
Yeah.
The reason is you walk into the classrooms and they're absolutely roasting. So in the midst of winter, you send them all sort of jumpered up, coated up, and then they come out at 3:30 in the afternoon, and he's got his t-shirt on because it's so hot. So I think a little bit of intelligence in that sort of control, the temperature control, would be useful in that. And I think this is probably a problem in most primary schools or most schools around the country.
Yeah, I agree. Education's one of the sort of topics that we're looking at, and buildings as a whole, really, I think have got less intelligence in them, and we talk about the percentage of buildings that are kind of sat in a state that require solutions to be retrofitted onto them. So it's about 70 to 80% of the buildings in the UK are still in that category, which is fine because some of them are heritage, like the mill we're in here. You wouldn't sort of try and rebuild this, you'd build on top of what it's got. So, but if we start with the fundamentals, and I always like to sort of say, what are the fundamentals in your view of how a smart sensor would underpin sustainability in buildings? What's kind of the main thing you see in your role?
Yeah, I think you've got to sort of think about the granularity. You really need to understand, how your building is being used. So that first step is always getting that understanding, getting those insights. Sensor technology helps because it provides you that sort of resolution and that granularity down to a level that you are comfortable with. So we're not talking about, certain parts. We can get down to sort of your room, desk, chair level. And understanding how your space is being used is the first step before you can do something about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. So do you think then that the sustainability agenda is finally catching up with the sensor innovation, or is it vice versa?
No, I think, look, sensors have been around a while. They are getting better, and especially with the advent of wireless technology getting a lot better, and where we come from on the energy harvesting piece. But what I'm seeing now is that legislation is now forcing people to move in this direction. We've been talking about it for a long time, and people have not been, you've got the early adopters, which are great, but the mass movement is now coming because legislation is forcing them to do so. And I think that's sort of helping the industry.
So you mentioned energy harvesting there. Let's just focus on that. Tell me about Enocean's energy harvesting sensors?
Right, yeah. So it's Enocean's been going since 2001. So we were doing IoT before it was even a term. So energy harvesting means that the devices and sensors generate their power from their environmental surroundings. So they don't need any batteries and they don't need any wires. So the sensor you've got in your hand there, Steve, that's one of our motion sensors. And that uses that solar cell to power the device. So providing you've got enough light, and
ambient light,
ambient light, artificial light, it's fine. It doesn't need much. 200 lux will power that device, and once it's fully charged, it will last for 4 or 5 days in complete darkness as well.
Wow. So that, from a sustainability standpoint, is a huge benefit of what you guys are.
Absolutely. There's, we've been using the term energy harvesting, and it's been used, but we're now seeing a new term in the industry. It's called ambient IoT. Essentially, it's energy harvesting.
Yeah.
What's great to see is that more and more manufacturers and even other technology providers are now looking at energy harvesting from a sustainability perspective.
Yeah. So in the last 5 years then, how would you say even we are collecting data out of buildings now? In the last 5 years, what would you say has changed to do that?
Yeah, really good question. Again, as I said, sort of legislation, but the cost of the rising costs of energy and the rising costs of running your building have gone up significantly over the last few years. So organisations are now taking a more interest in being able to optimise their spend and then their operational costs. Then also since COVID, a lot of people now doing sort of hybrid working. So everybody's not in the office 5 days a week, 9 to 5.
We can see today there's just us and one other in here.
No,
so.
Absolutely. So you're really understanding how you're using your space can have a significant impact on how your building is used, but also how the operational costs involved in running that building can be optimised.
Yeah, absolutely. And feel free to name some companies that are doing really well at visualising that data at any point throughout this this podcast, Cal.
Yeah.
So, what sort of sensors are you seeing that are providing the most value at the moment with your customers?
Yeah. So, when customers start going on an IoT journey, and I say this to all of my customers and partners at the time, there's so much you can do, but we need to start somewhere. So always start somewhere small, but it has something that has a direct impact on the outcomes that they're looking to achieve. Where we're seeing the low-hanging fruit or the easy wins in an organisation is around energy monitoring, it's around occupancy monitoring, and it's around air quality. So those are the sort of 3 easy ones that every organisation, irrespective of vertical, will want to understand.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I always say that smart buildings are not something that you need to fear. You can start small and it's very modular. You can build on top of it. And I think that's that's really really important. So how do we avoid that? So you've got all these sensors that are in the building, and they're everywhere now. There's all types of sensors that you can kind of get. How do we avoid drowning in data? So like people are going to say, all these sensors, this is providing me with energy, this is doing water, this is doing environmental. How do we stop ourselves drowning in that data?
Yeah, another great question, Steve. Look, it's really, really important that whatever data you're collecting through whatever format, it's got to be linked to those specific use cases, those outcomes, and those tangible benefits. Anything else is just noise. So you've got to make sure that any solution that you put in meets your expected outcomes.
It's aligned to business cases, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
aligned to what you're trying to achieve, and I think that's what we see a lot of happening. People are putting sensors in, and then like you say, the rest is noise. There's just all this data, and it's like, well, actually, is that providing a use case to us? Is it providing value? And if we can cut through that noise and just focus on use cases and what the customer's trying to achieve, I think that's the right way to go with it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And then you can quantify that sort of return on investment.
Yeah. So with all that data that comes through, what role does granularity play there then? So I'm thinking, do we go at room level, desk level? How does that drive change in or optimization? Is that the level of granularity we should be looking at in these platforms?
Um, Again, depends on the organisation. It
Yep.
depends on the vertical. But yes, you can get that granularity, and that's a really sort of good place to start. And I'm going to give you an example of, let's say, room-based occupancy as well as desk-based occupancy.
Yep.
I was talking to a customer in the healthcare space, and one of the challenges they had was, they run consultant surgeries. And typically a consultant will book that room out for the day.
Yep.
His surgery might only last 2 or 3 hours
Yep.
during the day,
Yep.
but that resource is no longer available to the hospital or to the health trust.
Locked out.
So what we did is we started looking at installing occupancy sensors at a room level.
Right.
So now understanding that that consultant can book that room for 3 hours and then it's vacant again, they can run more surgeries throughout the day.
Yep.
The benefit of that to the health trust is they can run more surgeries and they can get more patients through the system, reduce waiting times.
Yeah.
So that's measuring at a room level in a healthcare environment.
Yeah.
In an office environment, the same with meeting rooms. We're all looking for meeting rooms, but never can find one because there's always a lot of ghost bookings. So really understanding the usage of those rooms and those resources and making them readily available. In another instance, if we go down to a desk level, you can really understand how my desks and my hot desks are being used. Do I really need all of these desks? Typical cost of a desk to an organisation is probably somewhere between £8,000 and £10,000 a year.
That's based on the square footage, isn't it? Around the desk, so it's the people, the kit, the whole.
It's not necessarily the people in terms of their salaries. We're talking about real estate, FM costs, heating costs. So do I really need all of these desks? And a lot of time we see examples of, company might have X number of employees and we're only using, maybe 50 or 60% of those desks. And at the same time, so why do I need all of these other desks? Can I do something about that space? Can I repurpose that space? If it's coming to a point where I'm at the end of the lease, I can renegotiate a lease to reduce some of those overheads. But also, if I've got a multi-story building where it's only 40, 50, 60% occupied during the week, maybe I can close some floors down or close some areas down so I'm not heating, lighting, cooling those spaces to provide energy savings and then get everyone together and use it in a more intelligent way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that focuses on the, back to the office debate, do we, don't we? We've got all this space. The what if there is, I'm actually still 5 years into a lease. I've got 4 years left and you're telling me I've got 50% of my building is unoccupied or unused. Repurposing it isn't really an option. What are your views on kind of hybrid and kind of the return to work? I've gone off piece, everyone here, guys. I'm trying to get Cal to talk to me about something that's off script.
It's off script.
It is off script.
What you're doing to me, Steve?
I'm sorry, but I think it's important because it does drive into what you've just said there, and it kind of says, how do you then handle those scenarios where sustainability goals are not aligned to comfort, and does it cause conflict in the building?
Yeah, so going back to the point of, I can't dispose of this space. And we could repurpose it. You can create more collaboration spaces within that office or environment. You can sort of, let's say, close areas down that are not being used. So if I've got 50% occupancy in a 5-story building, why don't I close 2 floors down on certain days of the week where I've got lower capacity, so I'm not sort of heating, lighting, cooling those areas, and make sure you provide a collaborative environment for the occupants in that space.
I think that's great, and I think that's what everybody wants to hear. I always say that you've got 100% of a building, if it's 50% occupied, that doesn't mean that it's 50% saving in things like energy, because if you're not turning those floors off, they're dead space and they're wasting you money. So, that's what we're trying to achieve as a collective in the smart building space, is to help people maximise the investment that they've either got left in the contract. And I think that's something that using your devices really provides a great insight to that. So you've given us an example of an NHS customer, the resource scheduling. I actually think resource scheduling across the trusts we've worked with has been, I've seen that resource scheduling is a huge issue in every area there. It's actually one of the main pain points that the National Health Service are facing at the moment is, do not attend resource booking and not having the right capacity, or it's not been released because someone's been in there. And, that again is across corporate one of the most, the most pain points that we see. But what do you have another example? Like, let's talk about something where environmental data, like CO2 or even energy usage, has led to measurable sustainability improvements.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of more examples. We worked with a large French banking organisation, and their goal was to look at their estate and reduce their footprint from an occupancy perspective around about 15%. So they're using our sort of occupancy and desk-based sort of sensors. They've really understood how they're using their facilities, and they've seen a reduction in sort of 15 to 20% of their demand. So it allows them to now make informed decisions about how they want to sort of move forward. Similarly, from an energy perspective, we look at, there's a couple of things we can look at. Again, another customer across the education sector installed some of the ocean-based smart heating valves. And across, I think they installed something like 10,000 valves across 250 schools, and they've seen a 30% reduction in energy because you're just being a little bit sort of smarter. Turn things off if it's not being used. If somebody opens a window, automatically turn that radiator off.
It's common sense, isn't it, really, when you look at it? It's not that intelligent. It's kind of turning things off. Like, I don't know, I go around my house switching the lights off after the kids and, and turning the heating down and things like that because it has a direct correlation on energy. That's just the same in a building, really. It's like, there's waste everywhere.
There is, and there's that sort of human aspect and that sort of behavioural change that we need to sort of educate people on. But technology can help with that. If it's too hot in a room, by all means, open the window. But don't heat that space as well. So if we can do this automatically through pairing a window contact with a radiator valve, then people don't need to think about it. They can just go and open the window.
So we're getting intelligent now. We're getting about future thinking and what
we're getting
we can
smarter.
Do. Yeah, we are smarter, as like you said at the beginning. And I suppose that's where it gives comfort back to people to want to come back to the offices or want to come into buildings when it is a little bit more smarter and things are comfortable. It sort of takes ESG, it takes all of the legislation, and it doesn't conflict with human comfort anymore. It actually becomes ambient.
It does, and there's a really good point you made there, Steve, just around what we're not trying to do with technology is impact those environmental and those comfort levels. But what you can do is you can optimize those based on how many people you've got in the office and how that space is being used. So small little differences. So those marginal differences, those marginal gains will all sort of result in a much bigger return on investment. And just as an example, you drop your temperature in your building by 1 degree centigrade. It's not really going to have much of an impact on how you sort of feel. But it's probably going to have somewhere like a 10% saving on your energy. Dropping it from 22 to 21 degrees is not going to be. It's not going to impact significantly on the comfort levels, but it'll have a significant gain on your energy savings. So it's just sort of educating people and using technology to be able to do that. Another thing we're seeing a lot of is sort of occupancy-based sort of control and automation. And by that I mean, you look at a commercial building, and you've got whenever their sort of HVAC and their building management systems were programmed on day one, they were based on maximum occupancy. So the fresh air, the heating temperature, and all of that is based on the maximum occupancy of that space. But really, if you want to get down a little bit deeper, is using additional sort of sensor technology to provide that granularity. You can do things like occupancy-based demand and control. So if I've got a room that caters for 50 people and there's only 5 people in there, why do I need to pump as much fresh air into that space? Why do I need to heat it as much or cool it as much as what I needed to do? So it's using the level of people within a room to then drive some automation within the control systems that are controlling the big energy consumers within a building, like your HVAC and your lighting, etc.
Yeah. Interesting. So you've mentioned BMS.
Yeah.
We'll talk about BMS. It's one of the banes of my life in terms of that connectivity piece. So talk to me about how you solve that integration piece with BMSs to do that automation, or how you are actually delivering insights based like BMS and sensors. How can we make them work together? How do you guys handle that?
It's pretty straightforward.
I
think it's. I think sometimes people think it's more complex than it is, and it's around data formats and data structures. Sensors will give you data in terms in the in-ocean world. We've got in-ocean data and raw telegrams. In the BMS world, they want to work with a protocol called BACnet. Some newer BMSs can support sort of MQTT, but typically when I come across sort of that BMS integration, and the BMS engineers would prefer things as BACnet because it's a world they know.
It's what they know, isn't it?
So we have technology that can take all of this data, process it, abstract all that data, normalize that data, and feed it into these cloud applications like UMA, and others. But then take all of that data so you can run your insights and your analytics and make some suggestions. But then using our smart server IoT, we can take all of that data from the cloud-based platforms and pump that out through the smart server and give it out as BACnet to the BMS. So they can then ingest all of that data in a format that they understand to then be able to add some intelligence within the building management system to be able to adjust according to the data that it's receiving.
But it's also giving the guys that run the BMS the ability to see that data in the format they're comfortable with. So we're not pushing a new addenda; it's there and it's for them to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is what we're sort of trying to do. Are we moving? Would you say we're moving towards a future where sensor data drives automatic interventions? Then so. BMSs, lighting controls, or are we just having dashboards? What's the kind of future of that, do you think? The future of BMS?
Another great question, Steve. I think we are moving into, I think we need to move in that direction. The technology exists, but, historically things have been done in silo and in isolation. To get real understanding of what's happening in your building, and then to be able to optimize those spaces. All of these systems need to be able to communicate with one another or interoperate with one another, and we're getting to that point now. So the technology exists. I think where the sort of fear factor is how do I get all of this data in the format? And I think that's where we can help solve those challenges, but in a simple way. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be costly. It can be done in a very sort of straightforward manner and user-friendly.
So we think, and we're seeing lots of change, and I think I'd like to take your perspective on this. Obviously, artificial intelligence has played a big part in those interventions. So automatic intervention, something needs to happen before it's broken, or it needs to predictively understand the temperature's dropping. I'm going to start to cool the room or heat the room. Bringing it back to its optimal, which has been set in a platform like ours, where we say the room is going to need to stay at 20 degrees. You can see it, and instead of waiting for it to drop to 18 and then just blast the room with heat, start to gradually keep the heating and ambiently change things, ambiently change the light, know who's in the building. Do you see AI playing a big part in that, or is it just something, again, that the standard industry will adopt and use? I mean, what's your take on it?
I think it's going to play a massive part in it. AI, machine learning, language learning models, it's all going to sort of help but they do rely on the data. And the more data we feed these systems, the better those decisions can happen. It's like when you're just using sort of ChatGPT at home. You ask it a question, it will give you lots of different answers, not necessarily the answer you're looking for. So the more we feed it and the more prompts we give it, the better it will get.
Learns.
And it's the same with the sustainable buildings or smarter buildings. Is we need to feed it more data, and this is where the granularity comes in. A couple of things is we look at I want to maintain 20 degrees centigrade in this space. So yes, we can optimize that sort of your heating control and your HVAC control to be able to maintain that rather than giving it sort of on-off blasts, etc. But the other thing we've got to look at the same time is around the energy consumption. So I see it a lot and I hear it a lot is, my environmental conditions aren't changing, but my energy usage has gone up. But if we're monitoring the energy usage on those assets as well, we can see spikes if there's any anomalies. So it might be that your air handling unit, the filter's dirty or the damper's closed. So it has to work harder to maintain that. So marrying occupancy with energy on the assets as well will build a better picture. So the more granularity and the more data you've got, one, you can detect anomalies before you get a critical failure, but also it allows AI and the analytics and the machine learning to be able to learn from all of these different variables to be able to optimize and create that sort of intelligent space.
I think as well the length of time that it's learning. So I get often asked questions like, what's the ROI on this sort of thing, or what is the length of time we need to have our data running for an AI to actually spot patterns and analysis and things like that. What's your take on the length of time something needs to be running before you can use the data reliably as a source to predict outcomes?
Depends on what you're measuring, and I'll quantify and clarify that a little bit more. So if you're looking at energy data and you've got to 12-month sample will be ideal, just because you've got different seasons, different weather patterns, different temperatures throughout the days, throughout the year. So understanding how your building is operating for a full 12 months will build you a better sort of picture. The longer, the better, but you've got to start somewhere. Whereas, occupancy-based data, how are my meeting rooms, how are my desks, you can return that data in a much shorter format because people, the working week is still the same, irrespective of what season it is. So you have to look at what you're sort of measuring in terms of the time period.
I think, again, if we're going to look at that and the future of what we're doing, I think it's definitely something we need to consider case by case. And I kind of want to get that point across to listeners and users when we talk to them. There isn't a one-size-fits-all time frame for something around that. We've often said that if you're looking to understand predictive air quality or predictive temperature, you need to go through the seasons in order to see the peaks and troughs. You can't just base predictive temperature on winter. So we often say that we need at least 12 months of data in order to make that work. So where do you see right now the biggest innovation in sensor intelligence or even data modeling coming from?
So sensors are getting better. But sensors, and I'm probably get kicked for this saying it, but the sensors aren't that intelligent in themselves. They're a report of value, and they'll send that to. So the real value is in the software applications that analyze this data and process that data. So I think what I'm seeing is there's so much more sort of software applications, software players coming into our space and our industry now, and that's that's where processing all of that data, normalizing that, detecting any anomalies, and making recommendations is where a lot of that value lies. Not just in a sense of value. Sensors are getting better because of as I mentioned, the energy harvesting piece, the different types of sensing capability that are available. So they are sort of improving, but the real value is being able to understand, make recommendations, and optimize that sort of data that you're getting from your building.
So how do you build? So there's all these sensors, and this is stuff that comes across our desk quite a lot. How do you build trust with customers then around data accuracy, security, and the value that they can bring? How do you tackle that one?
Yeah. So data is reporting frequently, so getting it near real time. And getting a regular flow of that data, and that's where InOcean's pretty strong on the frequency of data being reported from sustainability using energy harvesting. The security one's quite an interesting sort of topic. So typically, when you install wireless devices, wireless sensors, you have to install some gateways somewhere in the building, and gateways tend to be a point of vulnerability because it's another internet-connected device on the network. Where we differ slightly is, yes, there's gateway solutions out there using InOcean technology, but we've partnered with some of the biggest IT network providers around, so the likes of HP, Aruba, and Cisco. So we can leverage the existing Wi-Fi infrastructure that a customer's already invested into the building, and it's already secure based on their IT policies, etc. And we can collect the data through the IT infrastructure. Exactly.
I need a glamorous host to hold this up, and this isn't that it was here by chance for this. This was like it's just been left on this table. But yeah, so this is the solution you're talking about.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we put in one of our USB radio dongles, and essentially the Wi-Fi access point becomes that gateway. And from a security perspective, the likes of Cisco or HP, Aruba, handle a lot of that sort of security, and the more that they're developing around sort of IoT security, IoT and security policy, so it's allowing you to get more out of the investment that you've already made, and we can bring all of that data into our platforms and be able to sort of process that data and then forward it on to other applications. So for me, I think this is a significant game changer, and we're seeing a significant amount of growth in leveraging the existing infrastructure.
I think that's a win. Leveraging the infrastructure that you've already got means you can build on top of and scale faster, rather than having to, like you say, put gateways, repeaters, extra ports for those. It's almost like it's running its own silo there, and you kind of want to integrate it into that, I think.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments that I'd like to make on this. Is the customer's already made a significant investment in the IT infrastructure, so it's what else can they do with it?
Yeah, I agree.
The other thing is, if we're talking about sustainability, I don't need to buy additional hardware. I don't need to run more copper cables or whatever, which is now another finite resource. And we leverage what we've already got.
Yeah, agreed. So if you're going on the smart buildings journey, say I came to you and said, Carl, I've got 4 walls here, this office. What would you recommend somebody to do on their sort of smart building journey? First thing that you would suggest would add value straight away.
It's an easy trap to fall into this, because for me, I don't like to recommend something off the bat. What I really want to do is understand why does the client want to do this, and what are they looking to achieve. So really understanding the client's objectives and their sort of challenges that they're facing and that they want to address, and what outcomes they want to achieve. That's where I would always start with. Let's understand, because it's easy to just throw technology at a customer, and what value is it to them. But until you understand what you're trying to solve, then it doesn't. We don't really go down what the product is. However,
What do they overlook? Like, is there something that they'll overlook that you've seen, in, like when they do tell you problems? Is there anything glaringly they miss all the time?
Yeah, so I would say go back to that sort of point. We talk about sort of energy because that's everyone is looking at sort of energy because of the cost of energy these days.
Yeah.
So understanding that, but really, I think what they overlook is the benefit of understanding occupancy of your building because that will lead to energy savings.
Yeah.
And it's making sure that we articulate and they understand
Yeah.
the link. It's not just about knowing how many desks I've got free
No.
that someone can book it or how many meeting rooms, but it's the energy that those resources consume
Yep.
when they're vacant and they're empty that can have a direct impact. So it's being able to articulate that to their benefit.
Yeah, I agree. I said this on the last one. I need to bring people on that I don't agree with because it tends up just being me agreeing with what you're saying. I suppose then if we just sort of look at the kind of future outlook, is there any sort of sensor that you can give us some sneak peek into, or that excites you that's coming out? Not necessarily that's out, that has a great use case. Is there anything you can share on that front?
Not necessarily any sort of new sensors. There's a wide variety of sensors that are out on the marketplace. I think, and I am slightly biased, but I do have a passion around sustainability. But energy harvesting is key. People have to start adopting more energy harvesting, and we're not talking about just solar cells. We use kinetic energy for light switches. We use the electromagnetic fields for energy clamps, and there's temperature differentials. So the energy harvesting piece is becoming more and more important.
Yep.
And what's great and what's encouraging to see is that other organisations are now focusing more on the energy harvesting piece, because we know that mining for materials for like lithium, etc., is bad for the planet.
Yeah.
Disposing of those waste batteries is toxic. It's bad for the environment. But also, having to go around replacing batteries is a very costly exercise. So being able to have devices that you can peel and stick and maintenance free is, for me, I think is a much more sort of sustainable approach.
Do you ever get any on that whole ambient light and energy harvesting? Do you ever get any kickback on the accuracy of the data coming out of that? If the light, like you said earlier, 5 days of stored kind of battery power if the lighting's low. What about if the light, does it cause signal issues? Do you ever get any kickback on that, or do you ever get any of the back to the accuracy question? Is what I'm trying to say. Is there a problem there?
Certainly with Ocean devices, I don't see a problem.
No.
So what this device will report, is obviously you've got the sensor values. So whether it's temperature, humidity, light levels, or whether it's occupancy, those are what these devices are designed to do. But you also get a lot of the other telemetry that comes with the device as well. So you get the charge status, you get the health status of that device. So you can set parameters and thresholds and that sort of heartbeat from that device that's communicating with the system. So if there's an issue, it will notify you and report you. So I think that's really, really important, not just to take the sensor values, but also the
inner workings,
the health status of the device as well.
Yeah, we have them in here, and we use them. It's one of our big sustainability plays with those. Are there any sensors that don't support energy harvesting?
Yeah, there is. So you've got to bear in mind that in Ocean technology, it's an open standard. It's a sub-gigahertz RF based standard. It works off 868 megahertz in the UK, but it works off ultra low power. So there's certain devices or device types that are not conducive to energy harvesting, and it's typically when you have devices with a lot of different sensing capabilities built in. So if you take sensor that's reporting, temperature, humidity. Then that's also reporting CO2 levels. It's reporting particulate. So the full sort of blown indoor air quality sensors, they require a little bit more power, and they're reporting frequencies. So you do need to have a additional sort of power source, whether that's sort of through PoE power or mains power. So it depends on the sensor type and the frequency, but there is a lot of devices that you can use on a day-to-day basis that are completely energy harvesting.
It's back to the sensor being the vehicle, the platform that visualizes the data that comes from them. And you guys have got a great product with that smart server that lets us actually monitor any type of sensor, which it doesn't, we can, if it's on the network, if it's running a different protocol, it allows us to even pump that through there, which I think is great, by the way. It means that you're open, you've got this great platform. So, that's how I see it.
Yeah, definitely. Look, whilst I am biased with an Ocean, I also know that not one protocol or one technology type is going to win. It's got to be a combination. So you've got to use the best technology for the use case and the best fit. So being able to bring in multiple different sort of technologies into a common platform is the way forward.
It's leading the charge there, and I love it. I actually think it's open. You said there that Ocean's an open platform that people are developing great sensors on top of. And I've seen some amazing ones when we've been out in Frankfurt. I couldn't make it this year because I had COVID, but I've seen some great partners that you've got building on the Ocean protocol. And I think it's just a great way that you can bring all those things in together. So finally, what's one myth around smart buildings and sustainability that you'd just love to just say, do you know what, fuck off, I've had enough now?
Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, there's people think that it's complex. People think it's costly. Look, there is an investment to make, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's as costly as people think. I don't think it's as complex, or certainly the way we do it is very difficult because you can scan a QR code on the sensor, connect it through your Wi-Fi infrastructure, it's onboarded into the platform, and then we can squirt out the data the other end. It really, really is very, very easy and quick to deploy, and it can save hours of time, and you can pre-configure and pre-commission the devices before you even get on site. Yeah,
I completely look. I hate this, but I completely agree. I think I bang on about this all the time, and I try and say to people, guys, please don't think that smart buildings means millions. Please don't think that it even means hundreds of thousands. Start small, start somewhere. It's really easy to deploy. If you want to see it, you can just come here and look at all the different devices and how they're connected. And I just think it's a great way to start. And I think start small. I agree with what you were saying.
It's a journey.
It is.
IoT is a journey. You try and do everything at once. One, you'll never get customers to make all that decision. It's too confusing. So I always say, and when you start smaller with one or two or three use cases, what that will do is once they start seeing that data and getting those insights, it gives them the opportunity to think about what else can they do, and more questions come up. And the amount of times I've seen customers come up to me and say, "Oh, this is great, but can we now do this? And can we do that?" And absolutely, and it's just overlaying additional sort of capabilities to deliver those use cases built on the infrastructure that they've got in place. And we're seeing it all the time.
So one question I will ask, which I'm hoping I might end up disagreeing with you on, is football team. Who do you support?
It's a funny one. Listen, I live in Derbyshire, but I'm a Middlesbrough fan. I'm originally from the northeast. I'm a Middlesbrough fan. I have this same problem in my household because my kids support Derby.
Right.
So we always have a little battle internally.
Well, I disagree with your football team choice. How's about that? So there's the disagreement.
You're not going to tell me
Middlesbrough are crap. Derby are even worse. Is this controversial enough? Maybe?
Oh, absolutely. You're not going to tell me you're a Leeds fan, are you?
No, Man United. So,
that's even worse.
Hey, we're on our way up. We are on our way up.
Well, there was only one way to go, wasn't there, after the last few years?
Look, thanks, Cal. That was brilliant. A huge thanks to Cal. What I will say is, if you do want to listen to more, please follow the link, subscribe, and we'll be launching quite a few podcasts, hopefully, as the time goes on. I'll be getting some more disagreements, and I can, not sit there nodding my head and saying that I agree with everybody. But look, thank you very much, Cal. Thank you,
Steve. It's been a pleasure. Thanks
absolutely.
for having me on.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
See you guys.
Bye.